A surfer doesn't want to have a 9-to-5 job, decides to start a company. Sometime later, he becomes the highest paid CEO of a thriving company that goes IPO. What is that company and how did he do it? G'day. Well, unless you've been living under a rock, you would know what GoPro is, and it's a small sports camera, not unlike this, something that's tough, reliable, has a reasonably good battery life and good image quality, so you can go out there and take shots whilst you are out doing action sports and so on. Now, what's particularly interesting about GoPro is that it was started by a surfer who didn't actually want to have a 9-to-5 job. Had a couple of failed entrepreneurial journeys and then started GoPro, which became a phenomenal success. Now, you might say, well, that sounds like something you should be investing in. Well, in my experience as a CEO, many investors avoid two things. One, consumer products, and two, hardware products. In other words, something physical like this. And this combines both of them. But everybody that invested in GoPro became very, very successful. Up until about 10 years ago, in fact, they were on the up and up. They've had a bit of a rocky road in the last few years, but they're still a very, very successful company. So how did they get there? And what do you need to know about how they were successful? Let's get into it. That entrepreneur's name is Nick Woodman. He had a couple of startups, particularly in the internet space, which actually failed. One was a website that offered only a $2 markup on products, and there was another one. Both of them actually fell over. Now in 2002, he came up with the original GoPro idea. He was on vacation, he's a keen surfer, and he noticed that the only way to get a good photo whilst you're out surfing is if you had a professional photographer take photos for you, either from the shoreline with a very large telescopic lens or somebody out in the water getting those close-ups for you. There was no other alternative. He came up with a solution to that, and that was a camera that was mounted on your wrist and was essentially waterproof. And this was a very inexpensive device, $20. And it was originally a film camera, and you could wear it on your wrist and shake it, and he shows you doing that, and you could take photos of yourself while you're out surfing. And that was the original idea of GoPro. It was being able to do what a professional does. In other words, going professional for yourself with this extremely inexpensive camera. And that was the emergence of the success. Well, what's fascinating about this story is that those first cameras that GoPro had were film cameras, 35mm film cameras, and that was 2002. Now in 2002, the digital camera market was definitely up and running, but that wasn't Nick Woodman's idea. But yet it still worked. It was his old technology. In fact, the cell phone market had great cameras inside phones already in the late 90s. In Japan, who were way ahead of the rest of the market, they had great cameras in cell phones. And of course, we know now that's really emerged. Now, another interesting part of this story is how Nick Woodman was able to fund those early days. And he was lucky enough to have somebody in the family that could help him with a significant amount of cash to get the company started. And then he was able to turn each success into succeeding successes. He moved from film into the digital cameras, and the GoPro concept that we know today was really formed. So over the next 12 years, the company grew fantastically well. Nick Woodman was called the Mad Millionaire and was actually the highest paid CEO in the United States at that time, and the company went IPO, and 2014 was really their peak year. They had over $1 billion in revenue. Now those first 10 to 12 years were really what set GoPro on their path to really what is a part of history. We all see GoPro as the name for action cameras, just as we do Hoover for vacuum cleaners. I believe one of the key marks of their success wasn't their technology so much, but just they zoomed in on that niche and they did a really good job of setting a solid brand, a solid and simple product that people would use, and would use it in that realm of creating YouTube videos. I mean, there was a perfect storm. People wanted to create action footage. There was the YouTube platform, and then there were these action cameras that came along. So his timing for this technology in this market was perfect. And the proof was just how successful they were for those first 10 to 12 years. Now 2014 marks the high point of their revenues and really the high point for the company. Since 2014 to today, now 2025, I wouldn't say GoPro is failing, but they certainly are not enjoying the same level of success. They have brought on a whole new team of people to point the company into different directions. They tried to be a media company. They tried to do drones, which literally fell out of the sky. They tried quite a few other things, and the company kind of bloated up with too many people. They've since leaned that back down, and they're focusing more on making really good cameras and also bringing the GoPro closer to the cell phones. Rather than competing with cell phones, but working with cell phones so that people can do editing on the fly and those sorts of things. Now, nothing would be complete in a video like this without talking about AI. And one of the things that GoPro is doing and continues to do and does quite well is use AI in the stabilization of the videos. So they have a really good way of making the image look smooth thanks to the AI technology. If we go back sort of 10 to 15 years, we used to call that fuzzy logic. Nowadays we call it AI, and there are different techniques, but the overall result is the same. It's the smoothing out of the video. And of course, there has become the inevitable competition. Number one competition would be from a company called DJI. Now, I purchased a DJI because for dollar I felt there was more value, and it had very, very good ratings on reliability, and GoPro unfortunately did not, and I didn't want an action camera that would fail on me. The other one is Insta360, which is a smaller 360 recording camera with its own AI features. Both of those two companies are really pushing in and giving GoPro, if you like, a hard time. Now, GoPro did try to push back with going into DJI's market with drones, but really failed to do so. The drones literally dropping out of the sky. GoPro today is a leaner, sharper company than it was some years ago, and definitely positioned to compete in that action camera space. They have tried a few things to broaden and become a tech giant. Really now they're just back into the world of action cameras, and I believe they will succeed. Perhaps not in the full extent that they would have liked to, but I think they're going to be a player. One of the key things that GoPro has is that incredible brand that they've built up over the last 20-25 years, and that's not going anywhere fast. It really is a moat that helps to defend them from competition, and that's going to work in their favor many years into the future. Well, if I was going to give Nick Woodman some advice, I would summarize it in 3 things. Firstly, double down on that great GoPro brand. Make sure you take every advantage and opportunity to be the #1 action camera. Number 2, get really good at the basics. They used to do this really well, and they lost their position by having products fail. This is unacceptable. Get the basics right. People want reliable, solid performance out of their products. Just focus on the basics. And number 3, embrace the future of AI. AI is coming thick and fast. There's so many tools and tricks and availability of AI for companies like GoPro to do a lot of things. A couple of suggestions might be automatic AI editing, whether that's on the phone, on the GoPro, or some other cloud service, and a whole bunch of other AI enabled capabilities which are coming thick and fast. So good luck, GoPro. Well, if you're thinking of investing, don't go past hardware consumer products. Hawkeye is obviously one of those, and you can see the success of GoPro as a fantastic company, at least for those first 15 years, and still very successful. Anybody early in would have made an absolute killing investing in GoPro. Now, if you like these kind of videos, please leave us a comment in the description, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on all notifications. And I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.